Hey everyone, in this video we are looking at the difference between cyclical and structural unemployment. It's a pretty simple dot point. These two are basically causes of unemployment. So if we look at this group here on this original little table that I had, we're looking at this group of people who want a job, but do not have a job. And we're looking at why that's the case. What are the causes of that unemployment? And there's two types. We have cyclical. Whenever we see the word cyclical, we should be thinking of the cycle or the business cycle, the movements in economic activity over time, which of course is determined by our aggregate spending or aggregate demand in the economy. So whenever you see that word cyclical, in pretty much any circumstance, in any part of the course, you should be thinking business cycle, aggregate demand. Structural is a little bit different. It's not quite aggregate supply, but you really can be thinking of it as the makeup of the economy or the structure of the economy. And in this case, we're going to think about the mismatch between skills and jobs. So let's get into it. The first type of unemployment, cyclical unemployment, we talked about this just then, but it's unemployment caused by a downturn, of course, a downturn in the business cycle, because there's a downturn that leads to less jobs or unemployment. So whenever there's a decrease in aggregate demand, that could be because of an appreciation in the AUD, that could be because of an increase in interest rates, or it could be a decrease in consumer confidence. That leads to a downturn in the business cycle. And remember, if we then switch our thinking to the circular flow model, if there's a downturn in economic activity, that means there's a slowdown in production, which means firms demand less labor from households. And when there's less demand for labor, that means there's less jobs and a higher rate of unemployment. Except we call this type of unemployment cyclical unemployment. So let's look at this on the business cycle just to be sure. Remember that we're measuring economic activity over time, and it sort of moves in this cyclical pattern. Cyclical unemployment will be caused during a contraction, so when there's a decrease in activity. Just like I said, slowdown in activity leads to less demand for labor and an increase in cyclical unemployment. And vice versa, once we reach the trough and there is prices are low enough to stimulate spending again, to stimulate activity, there'll be an increase in production and an increase in demand for labor and a decrease in cyclical unemployment in the expansionary phase. All right, so that's cyclical unemployment. Structural unemployment is something very different altogether. And the really key point here is that it's when there's a mismatch between the skills that firms need and the skills that the labour market or the pool of workers have, right? Or the pool of unemployed workers have. So this is caused by a number of reasons. Could be an improvement in or an increase in the use of technology and equipment, AI and automated production lines. It could also be to do with the offshoring of certain manufacturing tasks. In Australia, we did have quite a solid manufacturing industry. I don't know how many years ago, let's call it 50 or 60 years ago. And that industry has slowly got smaller and smaller as those things have happened, the increase in technology and the offshoring of some of those tasks. So what does that mean? Well, it means there's a pool of people who have this skill set to do with manufacturing. They have this set of skills, but there's a mismatch because firms no longer need those skills. They need, coding skills and technology skills. So those people that fit into that category we call structurally unemployed. All right, and we'll talk about how we can, the government can set up policies to decrease structural unemployment in Unit 4. All right, hopefully we know the difference between cyclical and structural unemployment. Bye for now.